What do you get when you cross Japanese fighting fish with a trampoline? On this episode, we discuss the Japanese government's project to explore the Earth's mantle. We talk about the Maker Movement's initiative to provide a better quality of life for diabetics, and then it goes all Swedish. Ikea is helping out refugees with flat pack housing and meatballs. Brought to you this week from solar-infused chicken wings.
And welcome to another week with The Dane and the Pain, the show that is banned in Sweden and now come in flat pack for $9.99. Good morning, Joel. How are you going?
We're barely legal in Sweden. That's awesome. That certainly is going to limit our market share. I'm awesome, Lars. I just got back from a run, so if I start hacking or sneezing or whatever, that's entirely because my body is reacting to the exercise.
I thought you meant we were looking for a new sponsor for the show and give you some drugs.
Oh, no. Well, I was going to say, there's been a move in the States for legalizing marijuana, and Alaska back in the 70s marijuana was legal, and it legalized marijuana again here this past year. And oddly enough, our first shop in our little town here opened, I think 2 days ago. And it was hard. I was driving home, and there was a line of people, which is, a line of people anywhere in our town is a little unusual in the winter.
I can just picture this desolate town, and then suddenly there's like 4 people in line. You go, whoa!
Yeah, I think there was. Well, I mean, it's. I don't know. I think it's kind of stupid. I think that I don't have any problem if an adult wants to do that to themselves, but it's kind of like smoking cigarettes to me. It just looks stupid and not good for your lungs, and so why would you do it? But that's me. So that's been my week. What's going on?
Well, it's interesting. I think we're about to go into. It must be like a famine, or there must be some sort of shutdown of the country or something. Because I went to the shops today to get a few things for our B&B, and there were like hundreds of people just frantically grabbing everything. It seemed, and then I found out, oh no, it's just Easter. I'm amazed.
Yeah,
because we just closed the shops for one day, like Good Friday, and people go nuts. Oh no! Oh, how are we going to survive? And they just, I don't know.
Is Easter sort of like widely celebrated? I mean, I never really thought about whether or not Australia was mostly.
Well, if you mean
Christian
celebrated
nation,
as in we get a day off, it's very widely celebrated.
Oh, but it's not. I mean, people aren't flocking to mass or church on Sunday. For
no,
Easter
some people will go.
celebration.
There's a relatively good amount of people in Australia that do go to church, much more so than, say, Denmark. And Good Friday, well, it's true. Denmark is like 1%, not even. Or Sweden, that's why we banned. And for Good Friday here is a religious day, so there'll be sermons or mass or whatever it is. And then on Sunday is that's Easter, so people go to church again. And then I'm not sure why there's Easter Monday, but we still get that off as well. I think it's the same in the States. So yeah, but the shops are open on Easter Sunday and Monday. But still, people completely panic over this one day that's shot. So
well, I don't know any businesses here that close down for Easter or Good Friday because my beloved teaches at a Catholic school. Obviously, they have Friday off, but we're the exception, not the rule. Most places don't close down for Easter. I mean, it's just,
at all.
It's kind of just like every other day. Yeah. Our big Christian nation.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, but it's
but enough.
It's kind of Anyway, enough religion. When you listen to this, dear listener, anyway, it's going to be well past Easter, so
Yeah.
kind of a mute point.
Yes.
Yes.
He will have risen.
Yeah. Yes. Now, speaking of God, apparently someone's gone looking for him. Well, I don't know about that, but you sent me this article which I did find incredibly interesting because I haven't heard of anyone before trying to do this. And it's there's a Japanese company that had decided to drill into what's called the mantle. And for a bit of an educational segment here, the mantle is what comes after the crust when you go through the earth. So you got the surface, you get the crust, which is very thin, in earth terms, a few kilometers, and then you get the mantle, which is like huge.
And there's also the mantle, not the mantle that goes above your fireplace.
Well, you could take a piece of it, I guess, and put over your fireplace, but no, that's not what we mean. It is 84% of the Earth's total volume is the mantle. So, like, it's a massive part of it. And then you get the outer core and then the inner core, I think it's called, which are the really, really hot bits. But this Japanese company it's the Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology. So it's a government in Japan, and they're going to dig this hole. I'm not sure what they're trying to achieve other than they want to explore, which is fine. I don't have a problem with exploration. And it's going to take some obscene amount of money. Like it's this guy wrote in the article here that he's never paid more than $20 to have a hole dug. But this is a $500 million hole that they're going to dig. So this is going to take place over the next 10, 20 years. Apparently there's a very, very slow drill, or well, it's a few kilometers they're going to drill. So, yeah, what was your thoughts on
it's
this,
also, it's a not quite a 5K run to get to the surface of the ocean floor. And then they have to drill another, almost 4 miles before they hit the mantle.
Yeah, but say it's 4 kilometers of water and 6 kilometers of crust, or about 5 miles in total, 6 miles.
Yeah, it's a really. I'm kind of curious to see what they're thinking. They're going to not necessarily what they think they're going to discover, but what is the sort of the ancillary benefit of doing this? Are they testing to see if these drills can take the high pressure and work in that environment? And then the silly part of me thinks they're going to run into Godzilla or one of the Haiju or whatever they're called, from the movies, where you have all these creatures that get unleashed when the Japanese drill anywhere. And also, what is some of the...
I'm sure that'll happen. That's why they're doing it. They're trying to unleash it.
Yeah, those movies, Godzilla or Mothra, those movies that were sort of popularized in the 60s and 70s, I kind of grew up on the echo of those. I don't know that they make too many of them anymore, but gosh, they still stick in my head. And it just seems like whenever they have a radioactive incident, like they just had over there at Fukushima, and now you're going to drill into the bottom of the ocean, it sounds to me like the recipe for a monster.
Well, at least something interesting would come out of it, right? No, it's apparently, according to the article, what they're trying to do is understand how this, because the mantle is 80% of the planet, right? So it's huge. And they're trying to understand how that has turned into the crust. So why has it actually formed the crust? And the crust is what kind of sustains all life on Earth. And also, it feeds volcanic activity. So rocky shelves, which is what the mantle is what actually affects volcanic activity. And volcanoes kind of have a direct link to the mantle, if you want. They go through the Earth's crust, some of them, and that's where the lava's coming from, like really deep down. So I can see how they would try and understand more about how volcanic activity and how shells are moving and how the mantle is affecting all these things. So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating, and I think that it's kind of, to me, you get these people who are talking about taking people into space. This is, as interesting to me, and has the potential to incite discovery beyond, sort of offshoots from just the technical part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also kind of curious to see, because one of the things in another article I'd read was talking about deep sea life, and that's where they've found a lot of these microbes that can exist and feed off chemical reactions around cracks at the seafloor. And I know that they've found what they think are the elements of life, and that's pretty interesting when you start thinking about where life and under what conditions. We were talking about it a little bit before one of the previous shows. A life can exist, and what will we find down there?
Yeah, and I think there's an interesting separation here, because there's obviously an engineering challenge. The technical challenge is actually drilling this deep, and that hasn't been done before. So they will have to probably have to invent methods of doing this and sustaining and learning from it and all that. Which will, I'm sure this will mean that they can sell this technology to, who knows, oil companies and whatever. But then there's also the other side of it, which is the scientific side. What are they going to find, and how is that going to affect how we make decisions in the scientific way? And they're going to actually put microbes into the mantle as well and see if they can survive. And doing that will enable them to kind of make an an assessment on whether life can exist in planets that we thought were dead anyway. It's kind of like we talked about on the last show about the dwarf planet, about Sirius. Can life actually be sustained in ways that we hadn't imagined before? So yeah, this is a lot of money for a hole, $500 million, but it might just reveal a bunch of stuff that we had no idea about.
Well, we spend money on, blowing people up. I mean, why don't we spend money on doing a little exploring on our planet? Which I don't know. Yeah. I thought growing up on people like Jacques Cousteau and people, those sort of explorers, I think I still think there's lots of interesting things to be discovered here at home. But call me old-fashioned. I like Earth.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
And I also think it's interesting, the Japanese are doing this, and I would sure wish we as a country, the U.S., were leading in things like this. And not that there's anything wrong with the Japanese, but it's hard for me to sit back and see these really large scientific ventures go elsewhere. But I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, I think if the Japanese do it, it's going to be done properly.
Yeah, there's
expectation.
Yeah, absolutely, very efficient. There's a whole, we could do a whole show on why, in part, why that is the case. But I don't know, what else do you want to talk about?
Well, we can move on to something completely different. It's something called OpenAPS. And again, this is an article you found. It's a makers article, so makers movement, which is kind of IoT. The maker movement is do stuff with microcomputers and cheap software and hardware that you can find. And this lady called Dana Lewis, she's made a diabetic device in a project called OpenAPS. And this project, OpenAPS, it allows the person to use the data from their continuous glucose monitor, which is a thing that diabetics have, and hook it up to a small computer like a Raspberry Pi or one of those sort of microcomputers that are really cheap. Like a Raspberry Pi 2 now is what, $30, $35 or something?
Yeah, it's like nothing.
And, no, exactly. And using this to constantly monitor the insulin levels and do micro adjustments so that your quality of life is much better. And then the IoT part of this is that you can then tell this device when you've had, a meal or you've gone for a run or things that may affect your glucose levels, so that the device and the project, the OpenAPS software, can adjust for this. And it's a really cool little thing that just will have a huge impact, I imagine. I mean, I'm not a diabetic. I know people with diabetes, but I certainly can't speak of it from a personal experience. But I think it would make a big difference for people with diabetes.
Yeah, um, I think the part that was interesting to me is that there's so the U.S. and there's this huge regulatory system in place that that governs medical equipment and device makers. And what's interesting to me is that this person developed this outside of that system. Managed to get, I think it was what, she's got 300 or something people who are using this, and they've logged, oh gosh, it was several hundred, like 600,000 hours of monitoring or something to that case. But what, and this is why I think people need to give themselves credit, and just anybody, when you think of a problem, what was bugging her was on her glucose monitor when she wanted it to wake her up when she was asleep, and she couldn't adjust the volume, if I recall correctly, on the
That's right.
alarm.
Yep. Yep.
So there is the problem, and that single problem led to what we're talking about now. And so this is an example of an idea that couldn't exist necessarily, or I should say would take longer. There would be a cost benefit analysis, and after 3 or 4 years of development, it would be added on to an existing device, and they would charge you so much more for it.
Yeah, well, true.
It doesn't mean that this device or this idea will be widely available, but it could meet the needs of say these folks who have need to have a more actively managed diabetic condition, like you were just saying, people who run or swim, or who are very active, or their metabolism is just different. And I am not diabetic, but I know lots of people are. I know kids who, in high school have become diabetic, and little kids my wife has managed in the classroom. And they're as unique as snowflakes. They're each different. And so I thought this was really interesting and encouraging to see someone just sort of taking this on. Um, and I was trying to think, I don't know how many diabetics there are in the States, but I'm guessing it's probably in the either diabetic or pre-diabetic, in the 10 to 20 million total people. And it's probably more than that, but and worldwide, God only knows,
It's tons.
how many folks who could benefit.
Yeah, a Danish pharmaceutical company called Novo that produces insulin and administers ways to administer it, such as the whatever they're called, pneumatic, the one that doesn't puncture your skin. I still don't have any clue how that works. But as to your question, there's apparently 29 million diabetics in the US, and that's diagnosed or undiagnosed. So there's an enormous amount of people. And the article brings up a good point that this is not FDA approved. So the government hasn't approved this device because there's an enormous amount of rigorous testing going through with it. But at the same time, the plans on how to build this yourself as an IoT project or maker project is available, and there's nothing illegal about doing that with your own capability. And there's a picture here of one person's setup, and it's I kind of like it because it really is, it's an iPhone, so a smartphone, and then used to monitor trends. So that's where you have your calculations and in your kind of alerts coming up and all that. You have this device that transmits blood sugar data. You have an insulin pump, and then you have this remote control device. And there's one of these bits is a circuit board that is in a Tic Tac box. And I mean, all right, it doesn't get more homemade than that, right?
Yeah.
But it makes a difference. It's using FDA approved things and put them together to, well, I'm assuming give a better quality of life. So while it's not officially approved, and there's 247 people so far. I mean, you
Yeah.
could change that number. Not a lot, but as this gets more and more well known, people will do this, and I'm hoping eventually that someone will make an official device that uses this.
Yeah, so even, and I think that the FDA, that they're saying that there'll be sort of a closed loop system, or if you will, in the next year or so. But it doesn't mean that this won't continue to be there. But I think again, I mean, I always make this point that this is kind of a roadmap for people who are thinking about solving problems, or what they want to do. Here's a great example. She wakes up, or is worried about getting woke up in the middle of the night when there's a problem with her insulin, and the alarm won't work. And who knows where it'll end up. But I thought it was really cool. And yeah, that number, I imagine worldwide, well, U.S., knowing the U.S., we probably have the highest rates of diabetics, but
No, I don't think you do actually.
I'd be curious in other countries. Well, even if you think of, in the U.S., it's roughly 7% of our population. Even if you thought maybe 5% of the world's population, that's a pretty, that's 350 million people worldwide.
No, it's actually the Middle East is the worst hit of diabetics.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for some reason it's like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain. They all have like 20% diabetics. It's huge.
Wow.
The US is not anywhere near that.
Well, I need to read up on that. I wonder if there's some genetic predisposition, or if that's
I don't know.
Purely diet and lifestyle. Anyways, maybe that's up for another show.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just an interesting stat.
So we'll put a link. We'll put a link up on the website for that. Because actually, that site that it's listed on is also is really cool. I mean, it's got some other projects and other kind of things listed on there as well. And just as a reminder, folks, we do have a website, and we do. Lars has a website that I claim. We're on YouTube. For those folks that reside in somewhere in the alphabet, and then we're in iTunes. Where else are we? Oh, Facebook.
Oh, well, yeah, we got a Facebook page as well.
Oh,
except in Sweden.
That's right.
Oh dear.
Oh God.
We're going to alienate both our Swedish listeners.
That's all two of them. They'll go have a beer together.
All right.
Probably more productive. So that was my promo.
Yeah. No, that's good. And no, we do encourage conversation about these things that we find, because I think it's going to make the world a better place in some tiny little twisted way maybe, but we do want to talk to people that do listen to the show, so reach out. Now I've been having a go at Swedish today. Well, today as well. So I think maybe we should talk about something Swedish. What do you reckon? And I am not talking about the meatballs.
Last time it was the cars, right? Because Volvo, right? Volvo was.
I know.
We were talking about Volvos a little bit, and they're Swedish, right?
That's right, and they kind of keep creeping into the show. I think it's
they do
a bit of an ironic segment. So again, I gotta attribute this find to you, Joe. But I think it was maybe the best thing of these is that Ikea has started, or will be starting to produce prefab houses in flat pack. I just wonder how many bits are left over when you're done assembling it. So these aren't houses that are meant for you and I. They're not meant for established suburbs and cities. They're meant for refugee camps, and they're built in conjunction with the UNCHR, which is the United Nations Commissions on Human Rights. And they're going to replace, or the idea is that they're going to replace the tents that they normally use, because tents aren't very sturdy, they don't provide very good privacy or security, and refugee camps are notorious for being kind of crime havens, right? There's a lot of violence because people are desperate, and these houses should hopefully help limit some of that because people have some sort of private place they can go to. So a bit about the actual structure. So they're not very big. They're 188 square feet, or about 18 square meters, and they're made from this lightweight plastic. They're flat packed because IKEA, and they have. Well, how could they not? And
Yes.
and
Which means you need to have and you'll need to have an Allen wrench or whatever, the star hex wrench or whatever those damn things are.
yeah, I don't know who Alan is, but I've got his keys, and they also have. It wasn't even joke of the week. I'm getting to that. They're solar powered, so they have solar panels on the roof, and they are for 5 inhabitants, so they're for a family. And then the cool thing is that they're twice the size of the regular tents that the UN normally gives out to refugee camps. So I think this is IKEA doing what they do best, right? It's mass production of something that they can transport very easily.
Yeah, so many things struck me about this. There are so many different things that are cool about this. But first, because I'm self-hater kind of, I'm thinking, well, that's about the size of one of the rooms in our house, and they have 5 people, and I understand that it's for temporary housing, but there are so many cool things about this. There's another company I follow that uses reconditioned containers for and include sort of the self-sufficient material in this container. We should talk about them on another show. But this is sort of a stripped down version of it. And I was thinking to myself, it's like, well, really moving forward, the more that they can include all the elements that you need in a prefab home, when you think about housing, in the States, it's all sort of pre-built. There's this huge infrastructure involved in building houses. And what if you could just, as a guy who is 22, you could go buy your 1-bedroom house or home from IKEA and put it up. And then if you got a partner or get married or got a dog or whatever, and you wanted space, you could go buy the addition from IKEA and put it on your home. And then as your family grew or as your needs grew, you could grow the house. And if you got older and you wanted to sell a portion of the house or take it down, you could do that or keep it the same. And it sounds a little far-fetched, but in places that don't have like these huge infrastructures like we do, where it actually makes a lot of sense, because you can, if you have your own electrical system and your own power source, that sort of changes the need to put in these huge power grids and all of that. So it got me kind of got me thinking on many levels, and then also just the fact that with so much crisis in the world, and it's sort of always the case. This is really cool. Because in fact it looks a little bit more like a home than a tent, just on so many levels.
It looks like an actual house.
Can you imagine, if you had a family and, suddenly, for whatever reason, your home is blown up, your business is gone, it just kills me when you see these families with college educated and they're in a tent. And, we take so much for granted, but I can't imagine having to come home to that or come live in a tent and face your family and not be able to provide for them. And so there's something to be said for having something that looks more, hospitable, I guess. And then also the joke about IKEA and all the missing parts when you're done, and, just... will it withstand 10-mile-an-hour winds? All those sorts of things. I'm pretty certain they've taken all that into account. But
we need extra pegs to hold it down. No, it made me think of back in show number 30 when we talked to Latif in Kenya, and he was talking about Mkoba Solar, that had this really simple design of providing light and power to houses, right? Because now you can with LEDs and solar panels, they're powerful enough. And this kind of fitted into that mold. I went, yeah, this is brilliant. It's not just for refugee camps, even though that's where it's going to start, because there'll be a market for it probably, which is why they can produce it. But what about
Sure.
countries that have that have not got a developed infrastructure like we were talking about before? It's a perfect fit for that, of giving people quality housing in a flat pack. but nonetheless, it'll be something that actually works. I would have thought it makes sense.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you could put. I don't know how many of those you could put in a container. The size they look like you might be able to put in a 40-foot container. You probably could get 20 or 30 of those in there, which is
Probably,
just
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Knowing IKEA,
The
you'll be able to put as many as you probably can.
The other one to look at, and I didn't send you this link, Lars, but there's another one called, and folks, you can look this up, Helical Holdings, and they're on Twitter as well, and they have a little bit more robust idea of that same thing, and maybe we could either talk about it in another show, or if you wanted to, maybe just put the link up on the show notes, because
Yeah, I'll do that.
It's a little bit different version. What we're talking about, it's a lot more money, but kind of goes up the same alley, if you will. So actually, the guy that started that company, his name is Dylan Radigan, and he was a guy on CNBC who just decided that he was sick of doing that. He was on TV, a reporter, if you will, and then had a real keen interest in helping out veterans, and got this wild hair of an idea and just kind of went with it. And I'm curious to see where it goes. But
yeah. I always like it when established companies such as IKEA take the bit that they're really good at. So in this case, IKEA is good at flat pack essentially. They're good at producing reasonably quality items, usually furniture.
yeah,
And the logistics are amazing, right? They can get this thing to all corners of the world. So you can buy the same item everywhere in the world for almost the same price, and it's always reasonably priced.
yeah. So now, do you have IKEA in Australia?
We do. We have
Like the
several
stores. Okay, have you been in one?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I have a question about the physical stores. So when we were in Portland a couple years ago, I went to their store there, and their stores are intentionally designed to trap you in the stores, right? So you go in, and it's like one way, like through an escalator that's going up, and then once you're in, you can't go back the same way you came in, and you're forced to go through the whole kind of warehouse. They also had restaurants with just incredibly cheap food that wasn't that bad. I think I fed the whole family for like $22. But
Yep.
so my question for you is: Are the stores in Australia like that?
Yeah. It's the same concept, and it is all over the world, as far as I'm aware. Now talking of IKEA, we kind of gone on a tangent here, but
It's okay.
IKEA
It's our
started
show.
the second shop or third shop or something ever was very close to where I grew up in Denmark, and we all know IKEA as this blue and yellow, huge square building, but the one that they built in Denmark was red and white because they were following the country's colors. Now it has since changed to blue and yellow, but it was, and it's very, very large. So yes, I've grown up with IKEA. I do have some IKEA items. And it's interesting because in Denmark, IKEA is kind of the cheapy shop, and you go there because you moved up from home or you need something quickly or cheap or whatever it is. When I worked with a French company, if you had IKEA furniture in Paris, in France, that was like the top of the line. That was like the best thing you could have in your apartment if it was equipped by IKEA. So they have, in different cultures, I believe there are different ways that IKEA is perceived. In Australia, it's perceived as cheap meatballs.
Yeah. I think you kind of have different sets of people. I wouldn't know enough about it because we don't have one here, and I don't think we have any IKEA furniture. But I wouldn't know. I love the fact that they integrated, solar panels into this design, and like you say, with these other items that you can get, these low powered light, and if you can imagine chargers for phones, and if you can imagine not desalination but water purification, those things that you could power, you quickly make it a much more habitable structure. They didn't list the price. I'd be curious to see what the price is, because to be frank, it'd be kind of interesting to see one of these and fiddle with it. I mean, really. I don't know if we get enough direct light here to power it, but
I'm not sure what the price would be. I don't think it would be horrendous. Well, most IKEA things aren't. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's a very clever invention.
We could put one outside.
Yeah. Do you know what time it is now, Joe?
Well, it's the creator's update has already been working on my device. I'm feeling very creative, so it's probably time for me to do some writing tonight. Maybe no. It's time for the joke of the week. Oh, Jesus.
It's the joke of the week, so come along with me. I cannot promise it will be funny, but it's the joke of the week.
Now, did you know that IKEA uses 1% of the world's wood supply?
I did not know that.
No. But did you also know that they use 10% of the world's time trying to assemble it? That's a good one.
And since we're picking on IKEA, I do know that I put together a bunk bed of theirs once, and I would just say once. Yeah, and once you got it together, it was rock solid. But my God, so many through bolts and so many different ways to attach it. This was when we lived down south, and it was a very frustrating experience for me and my beloved.
Beloved. There's also I was going to go with the old, well-known IKEA joke, but I didn't. But I'll tell it anyway.
What's that? No, tell it. Yeah, tell it.
I've been in IKEA since last Thursday, but no one will point me to the exit. It's
that was the first time I'd ever been in an IKEA, and I still have not been one. And we sat down. They had a restaurant, which I didn't know they had.
Uh-huh.
And they do. Honestly, I was just like shocked. It was like $19 for 5 of us for breakfast, or some ridiculous sum, and so it was a very weird experience. I guess, I wasn't prepared for it, and thankfully I don't have to go back. But everybody else is welcome to go.
Yeah, well, as a Danish guy, it's interesting because a lot of the Swedish food is similar in style to the Danish. It's not too far off. And they have usually they have a Swedish food shop after the checkouts. You can buy a $1 hot dog and drink, or they have this really, really cheap food after not in the restaurant, but like as you exit, 50-cent coffee or whatever it might be. And they have a Swedish food shop. So I usually go there and buy my rye bread and some pickled herring and a few other things. Yeah.
Pickled herring is yummy.
It's delicious.
I love pickled herring. Yeah.
We just lost all of our listeners there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody else that's had pickled herring, send us a tweet or share with us when and where you've had pickled herring, and we will mention you on the next show.
That's a deal. Fair enough.
All right.
Or the next show after this one publishes, it will be. Anyway.
Yeah.
Logistics, time travel, all that.
All right. Until then.
Sounds good. All right. See you, chumps.
Good night.
Thank you for listening in on another episode of The Dean and the Pain. We record across the Pacific, across hemispheres, and across time zones. You can find us on www.daneandthepain.com. Our Twitter handle is Dane_Pain, and we are the Dane and the Pain on YouTube and Facebook. We're also on your favorite podcast app, including iTunes, and please join our fan club by clicking the Register Now button on our website to know about upcoming shows and any free stuff we may have to share. See you next time on The Dane and the Pain.